So hey everybody, I'm Kyle, or what's the deets? We're back for another KeeperDAO community call. I'm actually really excited about this call today. So today we're going to be talking with um, one of our newest market making partners and their co-founder Masa from Bastion Trading. So really pumped to talk with Masa. We've got a good list of questions for him to go through. And then at the end, if we have any questions from community members, if you want to put those into the thread called KDCC Bastion, that's in the voice chat text channel above the stage, go on ahead and enter any of your questions there. But why don't we hop on straight into this? And Masa, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on this call and you all taking the time to maybe listen to a little bit of I don't know, maybe not so many useful things I can say.
Don't worry, people are used to not getting useful information from me, so I'm sure it'll be much better coming from you. So, I think the best place to start off is just let's have you just introduce us to Bastion. Why don't you tell us, kind of in your own words, what you guys are up to these days and kind of what you provide and do both on and off chain.
All right. We're a trading we're a trading firm. We trade mostly our own principal capital, money from myself, a few of my partners. We got together several years ago, and then we got into crypto maybe about, I guess, almost 5 years ago. So. Not exactly noobs to this thing, but again, we're not like the old OGs from like 2012 or something. Um, and what we started doing in 2017 was we found a lot of arbitrage type of opportunities. I think a lot of other trading firms has found as well. And we do a lot of I guess the similar kind of things that I think a lot of other trading firms do. Maybe we're a little bit more into like warehousing some positions, but we do market make, trade spreads, and just do all those things that I think any trading firm does, right? For the I'll consider some of the trading capital that we have. A lot of it as a capital side, you could say we don't take too much directional risk. If we take directional risk, we just do it with our own accounts, right? We don't really need to work too much together to say, hey, I wanna like buy the fucking dip and like go long Bitcoin or something, right? So that we leave a lot of it on our individual sides. As a group, we have a little bit of those kind of positions. And really, I'll look at it from a CeFi exchange side. We trade with a lot of the major exchanges, from FTX to Binance, Bitfinex, OKX, Huobi, KuCoin, et cetera, right? From there, we're on that side. We tend to try to trade a lot of the perpetuals, and we kind of trade a bit of the underlyings as well. So that's kind of on the CeFi side. Now, when we get into DeFi, we'll be involved in quite a few things. Mainly in the past, we've been providing liquidity as LPs to a lot of AMM pools, and that used to be quite a large part of our activities, especially in 2020 with Uniswap. We moved over to say SushiSwap. Later on, we found that there was a lot of LT, what's it called? A lot of value. TVL, yeah, TVL. And these coins, unfortunately, these governance tokens have been falling a bit. So we've been pulling out of a bit of those exposures. And we still do staking in some things. That's one area. And later on, we'll look at like doing activity like arbing a bit on say like a Mango Markets and FTX and those kind of things as well. And recently we've been looking a lot more at what I'll call like strategic market making, working with some projects, trying to see what we can do together, and really kind of expanding that kind of business. Really, we've been quite involved in less with, let's say, trading with or for or kind of creating an ecosystem and more for our own profits, but directly. But now I think we're really trying to expand out. We have a bit more capital, like thank you 2021, that we can really work on a lot more business related things than what we used to in the past. So yeah, that's kind of the things that we're doing right now, and part of that is expanding some of our liquidity and market making and trading things, and that also includes working with KeeperDAO.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the quick intro there. All right, well, I'm going to start us off with like a super hard hitting question. I love your guys' logo and name, so come on, tell me the backstory on Bastion.
Sorry, my Discord one's still on the old logo. We ended up with a new one. I haven't changed it yet. Probably this old one looks a lot like a Rook, which is I guess a castle, which is a Rook is probably what you look at the corner of a fortress where likely historically like you'll shoot like I don't know whatever projectiles out of that corner to attackers, right? So even though our name is probably more related to like a fortress or a corner of a fortress, it might have a very similar like hedge fund connotation, which I only thought about it as an afterthought. A kind of few of us, not myself, but a few of my partners really at some point like playing Overwatch, right? And there was a character called Bastion, that robot with that machine gun and the bird, and I was like, hey, that's a cool name, right? And at least it's a like a noun, as opposed to we can't call ourselves like like Junkrat Capital or something. So so we settled with this one. So and then later I was like, oh man, it's like a real like TradFi hedge fund, like and but it never really meant to be that way, I think, in the beginning.
Oh, that's super cool, super cool. All right, so you guys mentioned that you all have some really solid established TradFi backgrounds. From your website, UBS, Morgan Stanley, HSBC, JP Morgan. I mean, really kind of big names out there. So really, how did you all find each other?
So most of us, we all worked together at some point. So usually one's career in a bank usually spans a couple of firms. So it's been some crossovers before. A couple of partners knew each other from high school, actually, and so but then they went off in their own ways and went to school in the UK, and one ended up in Morgan Stanley, another one ended up working with me at JP Morgan. So we did find each other through, I don't know, like we all personally knew each other. So I guess it's slightly like nepotism related, I guess.
I wouldn't say that because of the success you guys have had, but if that can be your words. Well then, so you mentioned you got a few guys on your team. Tell me about your team structure. Like how have you constructed it in a way to get the most out of it?
I mean, this is always kind of evolving, and by no means do I think it's perfect. There's always room for improvement. In terms of in terms of like the team structure, we have quite a few traders, especially we've grown this year. Structurally, from geographies, we do have some presence of people in Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, and some software developers working on some risk management system like things in China, right? And really, some of it's been based like originally we were all working in Hong Kong, and then later you would like we've moved over to Singapore just because there is a different kind of I guess you could say community or people here, a different kind in Hong Kong, and we just ended up with a couple guys in Japan as well, right, working on different things. So we still have a little bit of a local presence, and when you do have some offices or people in those kind of places and nearby, you do get more access to like just the sheer number of talents, right, by virtue of spanning across a few cities, right? I know like in this day of Zoom and COVID, maybe location matters a little less, but I think like when you're kind of growing a company and you don't know each other so well, right? I think that kind of being able to meet up with people it does carry some importance. So yeah, that's how we are set up geographically. In terms of skill sets, right? I guess you could say through skill sets. Again, in trading, some of our core people are obviously traders. We to do things in crypto, especially due to the kind of sometimes a lack of on-touch liquidity, especially in CeFi, even though there's a lot of volume, right? There's a lot of volatility, as we all know. Really, a lot of this stuff has to be done through computers, right? Especially at the things that we're doing. So we do employ a lot of software developers. We're continually looking for software developers, as I think is with every trading firm and every project, right? So quite a bit of emphasis there. And we have a few other people working on operations, legal, compliances. These areas do start becoming a lot more important. Like I think, from the past, right, contracts are becoming more and more standardized. As you can tell, like on the derivative side, like what is it like guys like Cumberland are looking at things like ISDAs, right, which is the International Securities Dealers Association type of contracts, and then you need like lawyers and stuff. So sadly, this area is turning a bit more tradfi or like invaded by it. But we got to kind of play the game, right? So we're trying. So that's the way we're kind of like set up. I think you're going to find a lot of other firms somewhere along the way with slightly different team makeups, you could say. But I mean, with different types of what is it called, like emphasis in certain areas. But you'll probably see like a similar stack of like the different kinds of people around, at least functionally.
Awesome. That's super cool. All right, well, I'm going to pivot here to something that was super exciting for me to see about you guys. And so, we got to talk about the Bitfinex leaderboard. How cool is it to kind of see yourself and some of your team members at the top regularly? Is that a sense of pride that you have about it? Is it more motivation for you to knock John off the top spot? Tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, so it's not something we consciously try to, do much about. I think it's just so if you look at the P&L, the P&L side really is reflective of warehousing or holding of a position that happens to be so in Bitfinex, right? And this is going to be quite similar for a lot of people on the P&L in the leaderboard as well. And some guys, for multitude of reasons, maybe they're more successful and they have a lot more money, like or other things. That P&L will be bigger because they're holding bigger positions in Bitfinex, and likely they're offsetting it somewhere else. So, I mean, when you look at that statistically or mathematically, you could tell like there's a couple of guys up there who are always going to be bigger than, and I hope, right? Because if I end up bigger, likely it means that they've lost a lot of money, and I hope it doesn't happen. There's just going to be a couple of guys who will be bigger than us, right? The interesting thing is that for Bitfinex specifically is it's only margin positions and derivatives. So guys like Wintermute who trade looks like all spot, right? They don't really show up that much on the P&L leaderboards, even though their volumes are massive on that exchange. So just a little note there, right? So now it doesn't tell the full story, but it is kind of cool. Sometimes you end up on a high ranking and you get kind of like noted or recognized for it. I just hope everyone by now realizes that we have a lot of offset positions, and the fact that I'm crying over my losses isn't like I'm not down too bad.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, that brings up like a really kind of interesting question. So, I would guess that kind of every trading shop probably has, great months and probably some maybe kind of challenging months. So looking at that, like, I'm sure that, if you see, what I would consider like a red number in one location, I'm guessing that you probably have some kind of strategy you're playing out somewhere else. Is that a correct assumption?
So in crypto, it's been relatively, I mean, thank God it's been relatively easy. Trading arbitrage, and we've had some down or red months, but it's been because more we've been positioning in like futures against like spot positions, which again is like kind of which is just basically arbitrage. But and it's gone again, the position's gone against us, but we know the next month it's going to be better. So it's just being a little more patient about it. But I think this is more relevant when I was, my partners and myself, that we were trading, you know, across so many other asset classes where we weren't presented with such persistent, easy returns, right? And red months, you really have to like be introspective, right? And I think this applies for everybody, right? You have to think about, okay, why am I down? And and then you kind of learn about, okay, was there something systematically that I could avoid, especially those we think is questionable whether it has a mean reversion or value reversion a thesis, right? So, like if you're down on the futures versus spot, it just widens out. It's easy because you're like, ah, fuck it, I'll just wait till next month and it'll close, right? Those are some trades, but there's other trades, right? Like you're gonna be long or short positions. It's going against you. You really have to think about, whether your thesis still works. And then if you feel like it's not, you're gonna have to cut and reposition, especially if you see a long trend of red. It doesn't have to be big, right? You just know that the market conditions are not right for yourself, right? And when that's the case, I really recommend, and I've always basically pulled out, gone way into cash, take a couple weeks off, right? And then really think about what, like, do I have blinders on? Right? Like, was I so believing in something that when the market conditions changed, I forgot to change too, right? And you kind of go back and approach it that way and figure out, how you're gonna attack the market, knowing that you're kind of back in cash, right? So you're not sitting there obsessing about something that you did, that's gone wrong, right? And I think that's a collection of those kinds of thought processes. You could last a long time in the market, and there's going to be a couple of times that you're going to just hit home runs, and if you're able to, ride them, right, like that's going to make your returns, right? I mean, over time, that's going to happen once every 4 years, and it happens like once every 2 years. So your chances are quite good. But when things are really not really like kind of starting to go down, you really gotta be kind of humble and think, okay, do I need to cut this stuff? Do I need to reserve some capital? And maybe even if I'm right, market conditions are going against me, I can cut now and I can load up later when it's even a better level, right? So those are the kind of things you gotta think about. So in general, you just learn a lot when you're losing some money. You just need to be able to stay in the game.
Oh man, I would be a genius if I had been learning a lot from while losing, but that's why I'm not a professional trader. So, you mentioned that, outside of your kind of standard activities, you guys on chain had been doing things like providing liquidity and identifying, say, distressed TVL assets. Looking at that kind of, opportunities, is that what you would consider things that you're going to look towards more of a long-term hold, or, what does that look like for you guys?
If we're looking at like distressed or stressed like TVL plays, right? I mean, so this is something that I would have actually not considered would happen in crypto because it's like why would we have anything beyond like L1s, right? And there's really no real TVL or anything to it, right? But oddly enough, if you with this fall in the market, we see things like definitely these I mean Olympus and its forks. I think a lot of people, I'm going to be quite blunt, right? I think a lot of guys and gals, I guess, have went in really not fully understanding the mechanics, and I think there's a lot of frustration as as not only the markets have fallen, the treasuries has fallen, but that premium to play that 3-3 kind of game, that thesis falls apart rather quickly and violently. And we're seeing a lot of implicit, I think, just like, rage, not even like, they're just selling below because it's just so painful, right? One way or the other. And here I think there's quite a bit of interesting opportunities, just because the treasury backing is bigger. That and these DAOs are still, I think, really for everyone I look at, right? They're still really trying to figure out like how to make a DAO like really run, right? Whether it's from just general governance to avoiding like deadlock, and because it's never been done before, right? As these things hopefully become more established, I don't want to say established, you find a better, it's always an improvement, right? An iteration, you find the next iteration, and the damage has already been done. There's a lot of upside to these things, and that's kind of the what I've been definitely been looking at, right? In TradFi, that this happens quite a bit. You see a lot of companies, they kind of lose their way, and they're holding on to a lot of cash. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to really bring value because they're kind of out of their, like out of timing, right? And there's some investors can come in and have some good ideas and really try to not only just kind of break like you don't want to break them apart just to get the value and go, right? But you want to see, okay, how can I use these assets, use the community, or to position them, right? And not use, but to position them into something that we could make a lot more value. So that's something, because it's a bear market, right? It's something that's quite interesting to see, because if you get it right, by the time the next upswing comes along, right, and you got the right setup, like this stuff could really fly, right? And you don't have to worry about breaking it apart.
Right. And that's really cool. So that kind of leads me to a similar vein topic, and something that I was doing a little bit of research and digging around, and I saw that you had posted on Wonderland's forum about an opportunity that you had thought about for their treasury and treasury management. Can you tell me a little bit about what your thoughts behind that were, and how that process went for you?
Yeah. So I mean, a couple of years ago, before like Popsicle and like Abra and Wonderland got big, I worked with Danny on a couple projects, a couple things, when we were all a lot smaller, and I really liked that experience. I think he's someone that has some great ideas, a very good business mind, right? It's just that when we're looking at 2021, everything is like going like I don't know, light speed times light speed squared, something like that. And it's and you gotta make do and make hay while the sun shines. So you're not going to really think about, oh, like, is everything structured right? Like, let's just get everyone on board. Let's get guys who are successful, like, guys who are really involved, passionate, right? And he got guys like like Zero X Sifu, like Sifu, around, who is the treasury manager. And then when the market turns, everyone gets a bit of angst, even though it looked really great for a little bit before. And sometimes in bear markets, bad price action occurs, and I think due to that, they got like these guys got liquidated, even though they're founders, right? And it creates a bit of a mess, right? No matter how you slice and dice it. And through that later, I think Sifu got doxxed, where I don't, personally speaking, I don't think it really has what someone did years ago and got indicted and convicted and done their time, right? Maybe by headlines it looks a little bad, but it doesn't detract from the kind of skill or whatever X factor it is to kind of work with the community, even in a sense, manage the treasury. Is it perfect? No, but no one's perfect, right? But nonetheless, right, I think the timing of when it was doxed. Regrettably, I think if it was a lot earlier, no one would have cared. All those things led to basically this, the community voting him out of being a treasury manager, which really leaves a kind of a hole, right? Like even from a man hours perspective of who's going to mine the treasury, even while you might go through some, changes. And looking at it, the price of the Wonderland tokens, the wrapped ones, W Memo, was trading, and it still is actually trading at such well, I'll consider it distressed level, right? Like it's trading half of that of the treasury backing. I was thinking, if I can get a little bit of a, I mean, it's really like I don't want to say opportunistic, but it is an opportunity, right? Where if I can work and help in any way or some way that there's been some issues and could get it back on track, the price action should be good, right? And if I know that the price action has a good chance of being good, even by, if I can help it out, then it really makes it easier for me to accumulate these tokens, right? And it's not like I'm gonna maybe accumulate it and then just sell them, maybe, but it's where if I have that clarity, I can accumulate it. I can help with the treasury potentially. Could give us some ideas. At least have it where it's making some returns, and then really kind of see to it that it can kind of go on a track, right? Whether I'm involved for a long time or not a long time, if it kind of gets in that path, and everyone's who's on the team still, who have a lot of talent, can be doing the things they do, and you could get it where things are going well. The price, in theory, should go up, and it should go up drastically. And I mean, what a great bet, right? The treasury's big. There's a lot of things that can be done. There's a lot of partnerships. There's a lot of things you can explore, right? I mean, a lot of things maybe there just hasn't been the time, just because the team size isn't big. You're expanding so much, a lot of AUM or the money's coming in, and there's a lot to do, right? So, if you have right now it's about $250 million treasury. It's a lot you can do. It's an investment DAO effectively. I guess maybe it's a security, but like let's not talk too much about that. There's a lot of partnerships you could do, right? Like you could think about all the kind of things to deploy that kind of capital, whether it's market making, liquidity providing, right? And I mean, these are type of the guys that, whether it's Olympus or Wonderland, it's something that even like KeeperDAO and many other places can go and really create a value add, like ecosystem. So, who's going to manage that? Maybe am I the best guy? Maybe not, but all that potential is there, right? And it just has to get just moving, I guess. So that's what makes it really an interesting thing to kind of go into. And the first thing to fix, I figured, is just getting the treasury, back on track, earning a little bit, and then just go from there.
For sure. Well, that brings me to kind of my last kind of, let's call it third party topic here, which is, as you kind of trade or accumulate kind of any of these tokens, and some of them are backed by DAOs, what's your thoughts on different governance systems that you've seen? And, does that play a part in how you assess any opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I guess it's a combination of both the governance and how open I think the board is to both, to the community and also to, to be completely selfish, also to me, right? And but then everyone should think that way, right? In a selfish way, right? And if everyone thinks in a selfish way, then every DAO has to be really open to the community, and because it is a DAO, and you want to keep this kind of like this, there's inevitably going to be leaders, but there should be, in theory, I think, a lean on making sure that there's rational decisions that are not only made, but they're really made for the benefit of truly really everyone, and that there's the next level of of contributors who really have some thoughtful responses and additions and things, right? So I think there's a lot of good one, a lot of variations of ones that are on the right path. I think there's other ones, especially some of these forks, where it does seem fairly dodgy as to knowing what's happening. I think one or two of the Phantom Chain DAOs, that's a Olympus fork. It does seem to be a lot more problematic. It's definitely reflected in both the lack of market cap, the treasury size, and you can tell in the community whether you have that right kind of back and forth, right? So it's I think it's quite important, and I think later on, when especially now that not everything is just going up, I think these kind of areas will become more scrutinized. I think that's going to definitely happen in the next year or so, right? Like little by little over time. So it's
Really
going to
good.
be quite important to really, as DAO leaders. I know, unfortunately, like DAOs should be a little bit more decentralized, but there are leaders to be quite fair and open and really kind of think about the rules. I guess rules and processes that can really allow for creative and productive value accretion, right?
It's awesome. Yeah, really, really good insight there. All right, so let's pivot. We've talked a little bit about your guys' background and what you do, and kind of what's happening outside of the market. So why don't we kind of zoom in a little bit and look at working with KeeperDAO. So I mean, just off the bat, you guys mentioned that you're on many different centralized exchanges, and with us in the coordination game, where we feel it's become kind of an opportunity like yours to branch out beyond centralized exchanges, but still continue kind of, regular market making activities. How exciting of an opportunity is this for you?
I look at it kind of long term, right? As well, because I think the long term is what really, we should be. Well, I mean, I would want to look at is what's really cool about something like KeeperDAO is that the way with the market makers or keepers is that there is a access, right? There's an access for users to a whole gamut of liquidity, right? And with keepers operating on your own side, I'm not going to get too much into the technicals here for everyone, but effectively it is acting as a defense against things like MEV attacks, right? And you're trying to source the best liquidity while keeping things within that trading venue, right? Trading venue, this trading venue as fair as possible, right? And that is quite exciting because I mean, I just read something about like FTX US, and it didn't seem, I don't know what exactly they're implying, but there seems to be even a lean of do I charge zero commissions and sell user data, right? Or sell like order book flow. I feel like I'm looking at like Flash Boys, like the book written by Michael Lewis on HFTs, like all over again. And I remember even in TradFi, I always thought using like Credit Suisse AES, which is one of the top algo type systems back then. I always felt like I was front ran, right? And then when I read the book, I got absolutely livid because I actually found out I in fact did get front ran. It wasn't just it wasn't like dreaming this thing, right? Like, and I think what will happen is that a lot of I mean, if you look at exchanges like CeFi exchanges, right? There's a lot of aggregate, like what's called exchange aggregators coming in as well, right? And I can go to an aggregator and I can have my commissions lowered, right? So, and they can route my orders cheap, right? So what are exchanges going to eventually do is that they're on a race to zero on comps, right? Like the same may be said about even DeFi in a way, right? Like you're going to find the cheapest gas fees somewhere, right? So a lot of guys will end up going to somewhere like AVAX to trade, for example, versus Ethereum, for example, right? You're finding like you're just finding that way to zero one way or the other. Then you know what they're gonna start. You're gonna eventually because of that, you're going to see a higher incidence in DeFi or wherever of like pay for order flow, right? And that kind of front running, because that's going to happen in both spots, right? The reason why, and if you think about MEV or like sandwich attacks, it is where you are bribing a node, right, to effectively look at the order fuck and then the order order of orders, the time, the queue, right, in a way to reroute it so that you get that information. I mean, that's no different than paying for. It's just paying for order flow basically, and front running it, and to find that kind of place that's making it fair, it is going to become really important, like very fast, right? And to be involved in a place that's going to be doing it, like, it's going to be good business. I mean, just flat out. So that's what really excites me.
Awesome. So, looking at the way that you're going to kind of get started of working with us is definitely on the market making side. Could you see Bastion's role in the KeeperDAO ecosystem kind of evolving over time? Maybe with respect to users and keepers and kind of what Bastion could make an impact on.
I mean, I think there's a lot of value to be both a keeper and a market maker. I would preferably, want to be able to do both, right? Then that means that I can provide a lot of liquidity one way or the other, right? Sourced from a lot of different places. And then if it's in a dark pool, that's fair. I can basically port that liquidity through whichever way, right? For the benefit of users. Of course, I'm not doing it for free. Probably I'm making a little bit, but I think it's more fair. It should be, in theory, at least more fair than what you're eventually gonna see anywhere else, right? Or it'll try to bring that unfairness back, to minimize and eliminate that unfairness. And if users can have that, right? And I still, it takes a lot of infrastructure and time and all this to get there. And it's not only for ourselves, right? It's for every trading firm, right? I mean, we've got to be around to make money too, a little bit, or else if we don't, we're going to leave, and the whole world's going to be back to the same place. But I think I want to try to be a little, try to share a bit back with the users, right? So yeah, I think that's where we're going to be looking at, is to expand a lot on that area. And even as a user, right? Like, I mean, there's certain things that, like, I mean, we just get completely MEV attacked on, and really, I would love to see those certain things get reversed. I mean, some things we just can't even trade. It's like it's so bad. Yeah, I think those are areas that we can. But we really want to expand on and make it really a good place to get your liquidity for users, and as a user, for ourselves too.
So you touch on something that I kind of think about sometimes, is looking at different trading shops that are in the game and around. How much of it would you consider it being kind of PvP versus like PvE? Where do you feel like you're regularly battling up against other shops that you see fighting for different orders or for opportunities? What does that look like for you guys?
For us, like, I'd rather not be in a PvP, because I can only go one way. So I think I try to consciously find PvE like ways. Luckily, I think for crypto, there's still enough where you're not. I don't think we're seeing as much like like PvP, like direct PvP. But definitely some of the strategies that we all take is similar. So there is a kind of PvP thing going, right? It's kind of like, because also as trading firms, we're not going to be fully open about what exactly we do. We'll tell each other generally what we do because some of it's kind of obvious, right? But inevitably, we're looking at probably very similar parameters, indicators to trigger our trading, right? Maybe not for every. We're not fully like copies of each other, but we are trafficking in the same stuff. And when liquidity and those things kind of dry up, and to be quite blunt, the demand from retail, or what we'll call like in traditional finance, we used to call it dumb money, right? Which is a combination of retail and large institutional funds who really, they just come in and like whales and just buy a shit ton of stuff without any care of prices, for example. When those kind of guys, when those kind of participants thin out, right? Especially in slow bear, not so hot markets, it becomes a lot more PvP, right? Because we're only the ones left versus the whole market. So it's really akin to like if you go to like a casino and you're playing poker, and you're there with 7 other people who are playing poker, and they're all there to like find that drunk guy who's playing baccarat, who comes in, and net as a whole table you could fleece that one guy. Until that guy rolls in, everyone's just playing really tight, right, and just trying not to lose money. So yeah, there is a PvP element, but again, luckily though, we don't. I don't think we overlap. Like all the firms don't overlap. Like everything. So everyone's got their. Everyone's kind of adjusting, right? So some guys will look at things a lot more frequently in trading. I know that like probably guys like I can tell like Wintermute is like very very frequent in what they do. Like their per trade turn is probably quite fast. They have a certain amount of tech, a certain amount of what they've invested in, and they're playing that game. I think we're less so in terms of turn, so we're not playing that same game. And the other guys are also looking at slightly different instruments, looking at different things. So yeah, it is PV in a way. Like luckily we all get to play a little bit of PVE, but together, yeah. When the pie shrinks, it becomes a little bit more PvP. But it's okay. It's the same as anything else, I think.
For sure, for sure. All right. Looking at time, I've got a couple more questions I'd love to
Okay.
get in a little bit more fun. But so looking at your Twitter profile and the Bitfinex leaderboard, you're the Skyhopper. What's the origin story there?
I'm terrible with names, right? Like naming stuff, and like I don't even remember how I even came up with this. Like I don't even think this was the right thing. Like I was imagining some kind of like airborne like fish or something, right? Because I was thinking like, oh, I'm not a whale, but maybe I'm like one of these like fish that can kind of jump out of the water a little bit. And then like I guess I was asking some friends or some of my teammates around, and then they came up with some of these names to kind of fit that image, and that was the one. Even though I think it's technically some like very esoteric like fighter plane or something in from Star Wars, but I guess I just smushed things together and it just kind of became what it is. So yeah, nothing inspiring really there.
I
So
love it. I love it. Looking at your Twitter, I feel like I saw that you were looking to get in on the big Luna bets that were going around. Give me a little thoughts there.
so yeah, so the Luna bets, right? Maybe hopefully like no one's hearing this. Like, um, like I want to put the bet on before I really talk about the details. But let me check my Twitter if whether anyone's going to actually take the other side of this thing.
Don't
All
give
right, so
away
it
your
looks like
strategy.
no one is. So all right, the way this is this Luna bet is uh so if anyone around, and this is quite interesting, right? Is that this bet is you're saying, oh, if it's above or below, we'll pay a certain amount of money. It's a binary. It's basically a binary bet, right? Well, duh, it's a binary 0-1 bet. And there were in like in foreign exchange markets, which a lot of you won't have the not privilege, but just the insight to see, right? These kind of bets are priced all the time in FX options, and so these can be priced. There is even pricers. I think you can even Google and download them. That you can set them up and you can see what it's worth, right? And you can take a even look at if you take the price history from CoinGecko, for example, of Luna or any other asset, in fact, you can find its historical volatility, which generally you would use as an indicator. That's how professional traders do it. Now, whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. And you can kind of get a pretty good idea of what the value of this structure is. And it is. There's two things about this. One is that is it priced correctly, and the second thing is what a lot of people don't realize is that if you look at the perpetual swap market for Luna, it's actually it pays the longs. It pays longs, right? So if you're long the swap, you're going to get paid to be long, right? And what that means is that mathematically, it would mean that if you look at the forward price, right, based on the interest rate and the carry, right, which is that if you're long this via perpetual swap, the fact that you get paid, you're actually happy to liquidate this at a lower price a year from now because you already got comped on the perp and you still make some money. And that's the mathematical relationship. Therefore, when you make the bet, the assumption is that you're making the bet off of today's price, but you're making the bet out for 1 year, right? Which means the expected price based on those mathematics, and this is a pure mathematical relationship, is significantly lower than what the price is today. Then what does that mean about your 50-50 bet? Well, if you just think about that, you'll be quite happy to take the 50-50 bet that the price is a little bit lower based on that math, right? So I think that's been a force behind, a lot of some of the interest of guys wanting to take that bet, and the same is for myself.
That's awesome. Thanks for the insight. That's really, really cool. All right, I got one or two left for you. So you've obviously stayed on top of that topic on Twitter, but is there any specific trends or topics that you follow in the news that either kind of open your eyes to some opportunities, or just things that you keep a pulse on because it's important for you to follow? Is there anything like that you regularly pay attention to?
Yeah, I have quite a bit of attention deficit disorder, so my flavor of day is usually different, and really I really should have capitalized on stuff like reading Do Kwon's tweets a week ago. I should have really paid attention instead of trying to figure it out now, right? So I think it kind of changes. Maybe some of the things I may be looking at, I actually use tweets sometimes to just simply kind of leave a note for myself as to what I was looking at the time. So that's kind of a good thing because you're actually getting a glimpse into some notes that I'm actually I'm taking, right? So right now, with I don't want to get into too many things, but Luna is interesting because it's the whole market of professional traders are actually in UST and Luna for some reasons. So it's good to keep up with that, right? For whatever reason it is, right? And it could definitely go either way. So that's one thing that's quite interesting because I think relatively it is a hot topic. It's a hot coin. The UST is growing a lot, so that's one thing. But you want to take a look at some of these trends, right? On the macro side. Also, sometimes it's actually good to sometimes look at like 3AC tweets because they I think they have a combination of things to make things hot. And then afterwards, I don't know what happens to it. So that's also quite interesting, to have some analysis to see what they're announcing, right? And I don't know whether they're, for what reasons they are, but definitely interesting to see what they're looking at. Doesn't mean to go buy it, but it definitely means to pay attention to it. Other things in terms of, it just depends. Like right now, I'm looking a lot at a little bit more of like non crypto related macro stuff in general. I think a lot of thesis around, maybe not Bitcoin, but like a lot of crypto. It is inevitably a kind of a tech, a tech proxy, right? Like it's tech, and it has a place in the world. It has a value, because there's a price to all their tokens. It means that it's priced, right? And those pricing, I think, as we know, that pricing has gone up a ton through QE, right? Through quantitative easing, and now, the real question lies on how much, like the Federal Reserve. I'll just take a look at the Federal Reserve, how they're going to deal with such a high inflation rate, and whether they really have to start doing QT. And if QE got us here, then you got to think, what does QT do? And then, well, I mean, you could kind of get an idea what QT does, but then you have to also at the same time ask ourselves, what is that probability of real QT coming on? Right. And so you want to look at all the details to kind of see what QT, whether it's going to happen. Right. So that's why, like, all my tweets, I've even looked at things like, all right, how much does a chicken Alfredo cost at like Olive Garden? Right. Because like, if that shit, if that stuff is trading, right now is at $18.25 that you can get right down the street, or maybe, I don't know, maybe you look at it like a Cheesecake Factory, like meal or something, something that an everyday person kind of likes to get, right? A lot of calories, you get full. You can start taking a look at both, am I getting the same number of calories for the same price? Or am I paying a lot more for the same calories? Or am I now paying the same price for a lot less calories, right? So I think it's an interesting way to take a look, because, for your everyday person, that inflation cost is really going to start eating into their savings, right? Same could be said about pump prices of gasoline or anything else that you want to do. So I've been looking at that a little bit, but again, I mean, I'll put that in my Twitter, because it's just a good way to just keep a history of it. So that's what I've been looking at. I've been looking for the first time. I've looked at like the Federal Reserve, like open market, like what they're going to do with bonds, and how they're going to like there's actually instructions on how they're going to like trade stuff, like just like how Do Kwon said he's going to go buy some Bitcoin. There's actually a memo in the Fed website and saying like, we are going to buy some bonds, or we're going to sell some bonds. It's actually there. So that's kind of the things I've been looking at recently.
Really, really interesting. It's funny. I was, trolling back through some of our chat histories, and, Hazard, our CEO, before he was CEO, mentions like, yeah, sometimes I just like going to the grocery store and listening to what normal people are talking about, like complaining about gasoline prices. And so it's just really interesting to hear just kind of what cues you that send you off. You're like, oh, maybe I should look more into that. So really appreciate your insight there. All right, I got one last thing for you before we kind of call it for today. And it's super open-ended. Answer however you want, but like, what's the number one thing that's most exciting for you for the rest of 2022 here?
Exciting. I'm gonna look at it from it's interesting. I wouldn't say exciting, because if we look at what's happening in the world, right, it's rather unprecedented, the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have Russia attacking Ukraine with perceived, whether it's real or not. I mean, it's partly real, it's partly perceived, right? With this kind of geopolitical risk that they feel. Is it right to go attack another sovereign nation the way they did? I don't think so, but it's happened, right? And we're gonna have to deal with it as a whole world. It's quite disruptive, and we see it already. You know, there's there's obviously gonna be self-disrupted things in the commodity space, and it's gonna be tough. And these things don't show up tomorrow. They show up a little while from now. Like, you know, it. These two areas are some of the largest like wheat producers in the world, right? Um, and that's going to have a knock-on effect, right? So that pasta Alfredo I talked about, right? That those noodles are going up in price at some point. Um, those are, and then you look at that with the kind of, you know, you look at what Canada did to these truckers and Bitcoin. You look at the way there's donations again in Bitcoin to Ukraine. I think Malaysia just adopted like crypto, I think, to a certain extent. And if I'm looking at like say China right now or Russia, and you see how the world is able to just, you know, really cancel Russia's treasury now whether that's a good reason or not good reason, you know, I don't want to again get into the ethical part about that, but you know, it happened, right? And so you got to think like everyone from governments, individuals, everyone's kind of really examining, okay, maybe there's a real value proposition to my keys, my wallet, right? And I think that transition is going to be quite interesting. I think that's what I'm looking at definitely from the crypto space as being a real positive, a positive driver. We're still seeing, I think, this year, especially because a lot of like regular markets have tanked as well, right? Crypto may actually start also becoming a perceived safe haven, as weird as it sounds, even for TradFi, wealthy, you know, traditionally thinking like, you know, boomerish type of people too. So I think that combination, and how it plays out is definitely like one of the more or the most interesting things that I'm, I think we get to see.
I totally agree. All right. Well, Masa, this has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you hopping in and giving us the time today. I'm really excited to see, you know, you guys market making with us, you know, and as more things come live and we get to see, you know, you guys compete against the other market makers in the pilot program. Yeah, I'm really pumped to at least just be kind of collaborating with you guys. So again, a big thank you and really just, you know, excited to have you guys on board.
Yeah, we're excited to be, you know, to be doing it. I really appreciate for me to come on here and you know, you letting me talk for a bit. It's been real fun. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to all the, you know, all the things that you know, I think we'll do with Keeper. You know, tomorrow,
Sure.
day after tomorrow, month from now, year from now, like, you know, 2 years from now. Really excited about it.
Awesome. Yeah, so are we. So are we. Well, hey, thanks for coming. Just some quick housekeeping before I wrap up this call. Just a reminder to everybody, we've got town hall again tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be talking a little bit based off of yesterday's governance workshop about CVX and our position there and kind of looking ahead. And so there's some research and conversations that came up yesterday that we want to talk about with the whole community. So look forward to that conversation. Another reminder, as always, check out our jobs board at keeperdao.com/careers. And again, a huge thank you to Masa. We're excited to have the whole Bastion team come and coordinating with us. And, you know, I guess that'll be the rest of our call today. But thanks again, Masa. And for everyone else that in the audience that joined and wrote questions, thank you. And we will see you all next time. I'm What's the Deets, and thanks again for joining.